G'day and welcome back to Down the Shed with Byron. Today I'm going to tackle doing the oil cooler gasket that's currently leaking on our Mazda CX7. So I haven't done this job before, but it looks pretty much straightforward. So let's tackle this together and see if there's any tips I can give you. What I've done so far is I've just jacked up the car, put some jack stands under, I've drained the oil and I've removed the filter. Having a look at the job, looks like we're going to need a couple of 10mm sockets, ratchet and a couple of spanners, 15mm and a 24mm. I haven't got a deep 24mm socket, so that's why I got that. To remove the filter, just a Ryco filter tool. I'll put the part number in the description, or a pair of filter pliers. Righto, looking at the job, there's a bolt that goes through the cooler and into the filter housing. I'm going to start by trying to crack that while it's all mounted up, just so it's loose. We'll remove the oil pressure sensor. That way we can get to the 4 bolts that hold the filter housing in place onto the block. So I'm using a 15mm ratchet spanner. See if we can get it up there. And you can feel on top where the bolt is, straight through the guts. Yep. So I've just got that cracked off now. So it wasn't very tight, which could have been half the problem. I've just backed it off a couple of threads. To undo the oil pressure sensor, you'll need to push this in. I've already done it just so I could keep my hand out of the way, and then pull the plug off. With your 24mm or 15/16 spanner or socket, undo your oil pressure sensor. With that sensor out of the way, we can gain access to the bolt at the top there and that bolt there. Now there's 2 more on the other side, just up in there. So now I've just got 1 bolt holding it in at the moment. I've got the other 3 out, but I found them to be a little bit tighter than what I was expecting. So I'd try and use a single hex 10mm socket on a little breaker bar, or a 10mm spanner initially, just to crack them. With all those bolts out of the way now, we'll try and get my hand up the top there to undo the main bolt that holds the filter housing on, and we'll go from there. So it's a little bit of a tight area to get your hand into, but you can get to it. Oh, that's the gasket. There we go, got the bolt out. Let's see if this, oh yep, pulls down. There we go. There's that bolt. And there we have suspect oil leak. This little O-ring here, if I can get it out. There we go, it's gone brittle. Here we have the filter housing. So you can see it's been leaking for a bit. So we've got to give that a clean up. 1 gasket that I didn't order, it feels like a metal one. So you should be able to reuse that with a bit of sealant. I'll show you, I'll just use some 515 for that. And there's the O-ring that we're placing. Well, it's like an O-ring anyway. And there's the bolt that goes through the top and holds the cooler to the filter housing. With a can of degrease, I just gave the filter housing a decent spray and a wipe over with the rag. Then with a can of brake clean, gave it an initial clean after and another wipe over. Now with the filter housing all cleaned up, pretty much good to go. I've cleaned up the engine block. So that should be good to go as well. Here's the part number for the new gasket that I'm using. I'd probably advise grabbing that one as well. I'm just going to put some sealant on that one. I'll show you that after. I've just applied a thin smear of rubber grease, red rubber grease, onto the O-ring gasket before installing. That rubber grease helps with locating the gasket slash O-ring and holds it in place while you try and get the other part of the filter housing up. Now it's time to install the filter housing. I found a copper washer just on top, so if you have a look at the convex of it, so that'll go on top like that, and the bolt through. So there is little dowels on the edges here, which will locate the housing as well. So with a small amount of 515 just smeared onto this gasket, we'll fit that now. So just checking the orientation of the gasket again before I go fitting it. Slide it up into place. I'm going to try for a top bolt first. Now I have that top one started. I'll try and get the opposite but the bottom one done on the other side. Ah, the gasket fell out. Let's hold that up. Okay, hopefully we've got that right. Now with those 4 bolts done up firm, because remember it's going into aluminium, you can tighten up that main bolt from the cooler down into the filter housing. Now I've done this up firm. There's probably is a torque spec for it, but yeah, if you can get a torque wrench in there, good luck. With a bit of thread sealant put on the pressure sensor, we'll put that back in. With that sensor done up firm, reconnect your plug. Now we'll fit the filter back in with a thin smear of rubber grease or engine oil on the O-ring. Reinstall. I'm just going to give the area a clean with some brake clean before we finish up. Dirty thumbs up. I hope this video helps you out or gives you some idea of what's involved with this job. A few things I missed out on sharing, which was the brake clean and degrease. I hope you guys work it out. A couple of tools that were a little bit extra that I threw in there at the end, like seal pick, but yeah, hopefully you worked that out. All right, take it easy and see you when I'm looking at you.